Well, good evening. It's 6 o'clock, so I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a joint meeting of Manitou Springs City Council and the District 14 School Board of Education. It's a work session, and I think the intent tonight is to largely to kind of get to know each other because we've got new school board members. We've had a council that's actually been in place for a bit, but we haven't done this kind of a joint meeting since before COVID. I think the last time it was, maybe a month before COVID. So uh, we don't have I don't think we have a whole lot of serious business to conduct. I mean, we don't have to get results, and certainly work session, we're not going to get results, but we've got three topics to talk about. I think we could be fairly informal. And I wonder if you'd all like to just eat for a little bit. And then the first item is going to be a discussion of the 2023 community survey results the city did, and then to identify community demographics and trends. So if nobody has an objection, let's eat for 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll go into the slides and you can continue to eat. We're absolutely. And I think there's maybe second helpings up on the table. There's drinks. Well, it's pita bread. Okay, I thought it was second helpings. Okay, well, how about that? Um, cool. Let's see. First off, I want to thank city staff and Denise for putting this together, organizing it. And Denise, did you have any opening remarks you wanted to make?
No, but I want to recognize Lisa because she's the one that did all the work to make this happen. So as always, she's the one behind the scenes doing the work and doesn't always get the recognition. So just want to recognize Lisa.
Okay, great. Okay, and when you speak, you'll have to press the button on the microphone, okay, and it'll come green. You need to be about 3 inches away from the microphone to be picked up properly, okay? And this is being live streamed and stuff, and it'll be on YouTube. So this is your chance for fame. That's the trick. And why don't we go around? I should have asked everyone to just introduce themselves, and then we'll have dinner. So probably caught people with their mouths full. Michelle, do you want to start off?
Hi, welcome. I'm Michelle Weatherhall for Ward 3. Thank you.
Judith Chandler at large, City Council.
Maggie Santos, School Board. Nancy Fortune, Ward 2 and Mayor Pro Tem. And I apologize for the sunglasses. I had some minor surgery done and it's not pretty. So trust me, you'd rather see me with the sunglasses on.
Connie Brochtenbach, Manitou Springs Board of Education.
John Shada, Manitou Springs City Council at large.
Tina Vidovich, D14 Board of Education.
John Graham, Mayor.
John Dorsey, Superintendent of Schools.
Natalie Johnson, School Board and City Council.
Jill Bishop, School Board. Julie Wolf, at large, City Council.
Susie Thompson, Chief Financial Officer for the school district.
Erica Warren, Secretary to the Board of Education.
And Denise, City Administrator. And I also forgot to recognize Erica because she also helped Lisa quite a bit with this. So thanks, Erica, for all that you did.
And thank you. And with that, bon appetit.
I did,
sandwiches.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. I would have loved that.
Yes.
I was watching. It was one of the food, Andrew Summer, whatever. He was in Muscatine, Iowa. Yeah.
Muscatine's not from the 60s.
No, I lived in school.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
He used to Well, it's okay. I think we'll go ahead and get started. We're just going to be really informal. And Tina was telling me that's how the school board likes to do it. And council during work sessions, we tend to be fairly informal. Since we do have a fair number of people here, if you would like to speak, if you just raise your hand, so I can call on you, give everybody a chance to speak appropriately. So the first item we have is the community survey results. This is something the city of Manitou did last year. I thought it might be of value to share it with you. I think when we were looking at what to talk about at the meeting, I think Natalie, who proposed this, her idea was that we mainly have this to get to know each other a little bit. So that's, I think, the primary purpose tonight. But since we have some common concerns, I thought the community survey would be a good place to get started. So what I think I'll do is just ask our moderator there to bring up some slides. Could you go to slide 4 or page 4? Not all these slides are going to be of interest, I think, to school board folks, but we can kind of bounce around if you like, if there's interest. I just picked out some slides that I thought might be particularly useful. Okay, so here we've got a map of the city. This was put together by city staff, and they divided the city into, as you can see, several areas there, 6 areas, based kind of geographically based on neighborhoods. And you'll see that there's some similarities. Of course, area 3, the downtown, area 1, the west, the far west, and then we've got Crystal Hills, area 5, things like that. So you can imagine that the neighborhoods have different personality. So as we go through here, you'll see some references to these different areas. Some of the data, it's grouped to reflect individuals' levels of satisfaction or dissatisfaction. So let's go to 12. It's a place to raise a family. What's Manitou Springs like as a place to raise a family? And you'll see in all of these cases, we've put the most satisfied people at the left, and then it grades over to people who feel that maybe it's a poor place to live. And then we've got some who have, at the far right there, the purple folks with no opinion. And you can see how it's broken down to demographically here, men, women, and then by age group and by income level, by time as a resident in Manitou. Does anybody have any questions on this slide or any comments you'd like to make? Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. And again, I picked family because this is something the school boards I thought would be interested in. We didn't actually ask, education questions because that's your business and we didn't want to horn in on that. But in general, we want to know if people were relatively satisfied, what they didn't like, what they did like. We had a section here where we asked them if we were spending their money properly. And for the most part, people were generally pretty happy. The thing where there was the greatest dissent or the biggest, I won't say disconnect, but people thought in general that we spend too much time on tourism. We spend too much time, resources, et cetera. We can find that slide, but Julie, I won't disagree with you. Too much of everything. It seemed like they were not happy about that. But in general, as Tina observed, the people were generally pretty happy. I mean, there we got what, a 72% excellent and good rating. I mean, that's roughly 3/4 of the people, and then an eighth had no opinion. So I think that's a pretty laudable opinion that we have more broadly. And again, you'll see there the areas, the 6 areas. Remember, 3 is downtown, 5 and 6 are the east end of town, 5 Crystal Hills, 6 would be the Villas on the north side of Manitou Avenue. Areas 5 and 6 tended to be overall the most satisfied folks, but the spread was not huge. Okay, we do the next one. Place to retire. And I guess one of the things that we'll see here later is that the population of Manitou overall is graying. I think we figured it's right about half the people are maybe in their early 50s. 52, 53 seems to be about the break point. Half people older than that and half younger. For city council, that's a concern with an older population and smaller households. I'm sure on your side, on the school board side, you have concerns about school kids, what's your demand going to be? Let's go ahead to the next. Again, as a place to retire. Quality of life aspects, okay. Most people reasonably happy. Can we go on there? Okay. Place for recreation, availability of paths and walking trails in Manatee Springs. Again, another walking question, can't quite read all of it there. And then a place for restaurant and dining options or dining restaurants. Yeah, ease of walking in Manatee Springs. So, the restaurants didn't get quite as highly rated there. Okay. Let's see. Let's go to slide 22. Okay, this was city services questions. Actually, okay, fire and emergency medical services rated really high. I mean, it's been hard to argue about the fire and police, I think, do a pretty good job. And apparently the citizens agree. And as you can see in the other categories, overall, people are either extremely satisfied or somewhat satisfied. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that when you're in this building. We sometimes have people who come down and they have concerns. So, and I'm sure school board people will, you no doubt have similar things. Okay. Tell you, why don't we just kind of cycle through one at a time here, just slowly. And if anybody sees something you want to examine in greater detail, maybe that's a good way to do it. Community outreach. Okay. This is our city services. 69% of the people had no opinion of municipal court. That's probably a good thing. Okay. I think we can probably go through these fairly quickly. So let me ask school board folks, city council is real familiar with city budget questions. Is this something you want to see us talk about all, or we can skip to the next section? Yeah, Judith?
Could you just focus on slide 18? I think that's a slide that's really pertinent to
Okay.
the school issue.
Okay, can we go back to slide 18? Okay, and Judith, did you want to point something out?
So we all know that about 50% of the kids are choiced in, and obviously part of our problem is there's not affordable housing, there's not enough housing stock. So I think this slide really speaks to is Manatee Springs a good place to work and find a job? And you can see that let's see, 56% said fair or poor. Housing was 72% of people said fair or poor. And then food and groceries, very high in the negative category. And then childcare. And I think the 69% of people that had no opinion really reflects that we're an aging population. I think the last census, we have 4,800 residents, and over 50% of those residents are 45 or older. So I just think that this speaks to some of the issues that the school board, the schools have in attracting young families with kids.
Great. I think that was a good slide to point out there, Judith. Any questions or further discussion on this one? Okay, I think we left off at 22. And that was actually, we were starting on the budget there. I don't see, usually the budgets aren't really a very exciting thing to discuss. So Tina, do you want to see the city budget or what?
any highlights that you think might be pertinent?
No,
I think so. I mean, poor Susie, when she goes over her budget, we listen a little bit more to her.
okay, that's, yeah, as you should. Let's push on to, slide 32. Okay, so top issues, priorities or problems. As you can see, parking and traffic, are at the top of the heap there, streets and infrastructure. Third, affordable housing, something we just mentioned, homelessness, and then the economy. So, it's probably no big surprise that those are where they are.
Who saw it?
Okay, actually, well, it was published and was on the city website, had a link to it when it came out. In terms of how I can also how the survey was done. If you want a whole lot of detail, if you go to the front portion of those slides, it talks about the company who did this was, the name was Magellan,
Okay.
and they are based, somewhere around Loveland, somewhere north of Denver. Erie, I think I want to say it was one of the smaller towns.
And do you
But-
know what portion of the Manitou population actually completed the survey?
We had about 535 respondents, I believe. 10%, so
10%.
roughly, a little over 10% actually. That wouldn't hurt. Can we go to the very front of the deck there, if you would? It was probably like slide 2 or 3. 3? Yeah, let's go slide 3. That'll give you a little more definition. Okay, so we addressed the survey methodology there. It was an online survey of, well, it was 515 residents. And this was done between May 15th and June 15th of last year. Survey response, they tell us statistically we're within about 4%, at a 95% confidence level. Now, as I recall this, we did this online and there was a limited way to restrict non-Manitou residents. So we did have, if somebody wanted to answer and they didn't live in Manitou, they could have gotten around that, but we asked them not to. I mean, we said, if you're not a Manitou resident, please don't respond. So for what we paid, I think we got a decent value, but it's not 100% perfect. So I'll make that caveat too. Tina, do you have a comment?
Yes, I was just curious how both council and you felt about this being actionable data or how you interpreted it as far as next steps. Thank you for lifting up and going back to that slide to talk about aging population. I know schools, I know districts. I don't know kind of from the city perspective, what is the definition of a healthy city and what population, I'm assuming a vibrant striation of age groups, a diverse population. But I'm curious if that's been a conversation about what do we want as far as our population in this city. Jill and I happen to live up the pass. I did live in Crystal Hills for 20 years before we moved up the pass, so I am familiar with that area. But just kind of wondering, curious, from your perspective, how do you see that data?
Judith?
So first, I'd like to say that this is, I believe, the third survey that I participated in as a council member. And I have to say that the previous 2 surveys were very small. They asked a very limited number of questions and the council said, we really want more. We want to do a deeper dive so that we can affect policy. Like one of the questions on the previous survey was, name one thing you love about Manitou. Well, we can always name one thing we love about Manitou, but this is the first survey that we really did a much deeper dive. I'd actually like to do a deeper dive. So for people who don't think this is a good place to raise a family and they said, very poor, I'd like to know what are the reasons why you voted that way. But Manitou has some of the same problems as other mountain towns. We are landlocked. We are built out. Our housing stock is expensive. It's not affordable to many young families with kids. You saw the traffic issue. That's been number 1 for the last 3 years that we've had the survey data. So there's some issues about safety. And so it's as a place to work and amenities. We don't have a grocery store. We don't have a pharmacy. We don't have a hardware store. So if you were a young family, most of those young families, if they lived in Manitou, would actually probably work somewhere else. So you're really creating a car dependent situation, right? Either you're dependent on your car to get your kids in because you've choiced your kid in here, which is great, or you've moved here, but you can't afford, you can't find a job in your specialty area, or you work somewhere else. So you're driving out. So that all of those, it's so many moving parts, and there's only so much that there are things that we can really affect policy on. I think housing is certainly one of those things, making our streets safer. I think council is doing a really good job in starting to address the traffic, mobility, and parking issues. I think that's pretty huge. I think that we're creating more community space, especially with the library. Very exciting that, that's shovels are in the ground. But we have those same problems that are really hard to tackle. And so housing being probably one of the most important, the commute, working ability to work, and also there's no childcare. So that's why that slide, really spoke to me is with regards to. So yeah, we are trying to grapple with those issues, but some of them have some answers that I don't know if Manitou, as a small town of 4,800 residents, is in a position to grapple with. And I don't know if that's a non-answer, but we're aware of the situation, the problems. We just, we have to chip away at it a little bit at a time. So, and we also have a budget that is heavily reliant on certain industries like the recreational marijuana industry. And so as this changes over time, we have to look at our bottom line too, and what we can reasonably do. So, good question. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, Nancy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's a great question. And whereas we may not have specifically addressed it in that way, in terms of how do we define the health of the community? I think that would be a healthy conversation for us to have. Actually, we have addressed it in bits and pieces. For instance, it was after this came out, the Housing Advisory Board was able to come to council. I think it helped council to say, yes, we want to support Prop 123 for our city. Whereas before we didn't have any really a lot of concrete data to necessarily support our involvement in that. I would say that I was very pleased with the positive, as I think Connie pointed out. The responses for the most part are very positive. The thing that really depresses me or distresses me is when we get into how would we rate your city government's focus on residents versus tourists. The perception of our residents is that we spend way too much time and funding on tourists. And I think that is more of a perception, because in my opinion, everything I do is for the residents. It may look like, maybe that we're supporting the businesses in certain ways, but ultimately that is how the residents are supported. So I think that that's a perception that we need to be careful with it. We also need to perhaps correct a misperception that's very strongly out there. So there's a lot, as Judith said, there's a lot of meat in here. It's online, correct? It's on our website. So I think it's well worth going and taking a closer look at it, because it'll help us all form priorities. And I also wanted to say, I don't know who said, if it was you, Tina, but the diversity issue I think is huge, and the age stratification I think is huge. And until we can, we were just talking about this while we were eating, but I think personally that is something that the school board and council might want to take a look at partnering on, is how do we in fact ultimately over time attract younger families. Is it strictly a cyclical thing, and there's some evidence to support that, or is it something that we can actively pursue and attract younger people to our city? Thanks.
Great, thank you, Connie.
I think this is actually very interesting and fascinating data, and I was one of those 515 that took the survey, so I think Colleen's nodding too. I think it's interesting that for the most part, with the majority of at least the first 22 slides or whatever it was that we looked at, overwhelmingly like 70%-ish 75% on the positive or really good side of the equation. But when you showed the traffic issue, parking and traffic, and whatever the next one was, oh, streets, like so skewed toward that's a problem area. And I know you all know that, but I think that, again, just kind of to add my perspective, and it ties into the school board and as a citizen. We're a food desert. We have no food in this town. There's no childcare. Young people can't make a living here with the type of industry we have. I don't know how you fix that. I don't know if you can attract actual industry that has a career path and provides a livable wage. But the people who are working in most of the businesses we have here are young people or retired people. They're not people who are trying to make a house payment, a car payment, and take care of children. So until that model shifts, I think it's going to be very difficult to get young people to move here when they can't get a job here that will support a living wage and allow them to buy a home and put roots in the community. So that's a conundrum. And that is like a really tough nut to crack. So, especially when you have a community like Colorado Springs, that's a stone's throw away, that's attracting, industry, IT, cybersecurity, military contracts, all of that. So I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I know childcare is also a problem. So yeah, we're a lot of gray hairs, and I don't know that that's going to shift dramatically with many of the things you listed. Yeah, we could all move here and choice all the students in or something. I don't know. Anyway, I just think that the traffic is also a big deterrent for people, like even people coming to support the community. It's a huge deterrent. I know longtime citizens who live in Colorado Springs, used to bring their family, don't come anymore. So I don't know, again, shuttles, but anyway, very fascinating. Thank you for sharing. And I appreciate the opportunity to chime in.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Okay, let's push on. Let's see, let's go back to, well, we were at 32. Let's go back to 32 and then we'll kind of scroll through. Okay, you can just, okay, this was the acid test here. 58% of respondents said that the city government is more focused on tourists than residents. That's, I think, probably the most severe grade in a sense that we got. And Nancy's already spoken to that, and there's been some conversation. Well, yeah, could you also, Teeny, do you want to, if you'd speak in your microphone?
I was just same as Connie, looking at the age difference in the respondents. That's a fairly significant. Yeah, just it's significant difference. So what's going on with the 18 to 39-year-olds? I wonder if they're the most impacted by the economic decisions that we've made.
Right. There's also a fairly high correlation among the younger people and lower income, and I think it's area 2, which would be south of downtown, and basically between Ruxton, South Manitou Avenue down to about, I forget exactly where the break point was, Pawnee or maybe East Pawnee, somewhere down there. Anyway, okay, can you kind of scroll through next? I'm sorry, anybody else want to? Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, land use. I bet this isn't too exciting to you, but there might, let's see. Let's just go through those kind of quickly. And what we'll do is if anybody sees something you want to speak to or look and want more, we'll stop and talk about it. Now we had some questions on Plan Manitou. Plan Manitou is our essentially our master plan. And a number of these questions had to do with some of the guiding points that are in Plan Manitou. If you're not familiar with it, it's, some of this is probably not going to make a whole lot of sense, but in general, we had things here like the first one there, our community is a vibrant arts destination that uses its assets to enrich lives through unique artistic and cultural experiences. And you can see how the score went on that. 40% strongly agree, 45 somewhat agree, and then it trails off. So again, pretty high scores there. People seem to correlate the comment with what with their sentiment. Can we just kind of scroll through these kind of quickly? And we're going to be redoing Plan Manitou this year if we are looking for individuals to step up and help with that. We have, I think, Sunday is our deadline to apply. You can apply online. Okay, police and public safety questions. Is this?
Going back to that last one, that very last question.
Yeah.
The residents of all ages, ability, means have access to safe, affordable, quality housing in a livable neighborhood. That correlates with everything else that you've seen.
Right, yeah, and you see we got fairly low scores there. 9% strongly agree, 18 somewhat agree, and then a lot of disagreement there. Yeah. Okay, police and public safety. Let's go on to slide, unless if you want to talk police, we can do that. Well, let's just scroll through there. If you can go through just kind of quickly. Police department, fairly impressive scores. I mean, and then the fire department, what is it? Firemen or firefighters, nurses, is it school teachers? Those are the three professions that people still trust. Politicians are still at the bottom of the heap, I think. So anyway, yeah, let's go ahead and scroll on. Generally, people they seem to be happy with the police and the fire. It doesn't mean we're perfect, but we keep working at it. Okay, city communications. So we were trying to get some information on how people, get information from the city, if they get information, how they process it. See, this one's, I think here's kind of useful, and this may actually be something that is, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a similar problem for the school district, although you do have a way to reach out to parents pretty directly, I think, but we have different ways of getting information out, and we were trying to figure out what people use the most. Okay, similar communities. Now, this is, I think, pretty interesting here. Let's go on. Okay, let's hold on this one for a little bit. You can see how we looked at things like overall quality of life, a place to live, place to have family, retire. And overall, I mean, you can see the scores that Manitou got versus similar cities, typically resort, tourism, cities like Glenwood, Steamboat, Estes. Maybe not Gypsum or Monument so much, Canyon City, but Manitou overall did pretty well. I think Steamboat may be scoring a little higher than us. I think their per capita income is probably significantly higher than us. Connie.
Who chose those communities? Was it the organization that did the survey?
Yeah, it was the sampler. And I believe part of that was because these were communities they'd also sampled. They had some history with that, some data that they could compare.
And considered tourist towns. Or...
Exactly, tourist towns. And again, it's not a complete apples to apples things. We're a tourist town, but we're a bedroom community. We have the recreational marijuana, the other things, so you have to use some judgment as you put that in. Okay, sure, yeah. Okay, let's push on then. Survey demographics. I don't know if on this side of the room, can you see the bottom there? Because we've got ages at the very bottom. Okay, yeah, so demographics pretty evenly split on gender. Time living in Manitou, we got a sampling there, a little bit of everybody. On the far upper right there, we're predominantly white. That's no surprise. We've got a little bit of diversity, but not much. And at the bottom, you can see our ages. I think right about 52, 53 there, we're splitting. We've got half above and half below. So, and again, only 4% at 18 to 24. We didn't have kids listed here. That is people under 18. Income, and where it says ward there is actually area. So we had those 6 areas that you saw earlier on the map. And that was a decision by staff to kind of group residents by neighborhood. Okay, and this is the Magellan Strategies. They're in Louisville. Jill, I think so. You've got that. And there's contact information there. Is there anything anybody wants to go back and see or discuss? We'll make this available if we haven't already. It's available to anybody on our website that we can send you the slide deck. Okay. If there's no further discussion on that, I'll turn this over to Sean. We can push on to our second agenda item. That is the 2023-2024 choice data.
So actually, I'm going to turn this over to Susie Thompson for the next 2 presentations regarding choice data. And I'll chime in as well on choice. And then she'll also follow up with a budget presentation. We've had a chance to do some kind of budget finance 101 presentations across the district. Really been well received. Susie does a great job with finance. And so I'm going to let her take that away.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, so this first topic, the choice data, is kind of self-explanatory. I think it's not something that's changed a whole lot in Manitou over the years. It looks like this. It's in, oh, there we go. This is kind of a tough, it's hard to read, but it's really easy once we get into it. This is a document that we put together with other area school districts every year. If you find Manitou over at the top, which is right, it's hidden by that picture, but it's right after Harrison there, and go down. Those are all of our students, and those are where our students reside in. So it's actually 2 columns over from Harrison. So you can see that purple column of 6, or that purple cell of 629. That is the cross of where the students attend and where they reside. So 629 of our 1,238 students reside in Manitou Springs School District. The other 609 students come from other area districts. So you can see down there, always our biggest has been District 11. So we have 340 students that come to us from District 11, and then followed by Woodland Park. So right now, as of October count, we do our enrollment once a year on October 1st. 173 students were coming from Woodland Park. So you can go down there and just see where we're getting kids. Other than those 2 school districts, it's handfuls here and there. And then if you look the other way, you find Manitou down on the left-hand side, and then go across the columns there. You can see where the students that live in Manitou Springs go to school. Now, this is a little bit tougher to distinguish because we get the data from the school that they attend in. So we can see where all of the students that go to Manitou, where they came from, but we can't see where all of our residing students are, because some of them may have never even been enrolled in schools. So we're really just counting on these other districts turning in the same paperwork. Normally it's been fine. This year we didn't get it back from Woodland Park School District. So it's hard to see how many kids of ours go up to Woodland Park, but that's really the only one. Ellicott also didn't bring it to us, but I don't think we're having anybody drive across from Manitou to Ellicott. Maybe, I don't know. But you can see we really don't lose a ton of students. We lose some to District 11. We know that we have some going to the Palmer area, going to Coronado. We lose some to District 20. Harrison has a charter school that we have some students going to. Cheyenne Mountain, we lose some, and we do lose some to Woodland Park too. So you can kind of just see where our kids are coming from and where the kids that live here and don't go to Manitou Springs School District, where they go to school. But overall, we're right at 49% choice. And that's consistent. That's been what it's been for a number of years now. Our student counts are declining, but we're still sticking at the same percentage of choice.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
The 629 students that live here, has that been stable over time or is that decreasing? And can you speak to that decrease if that's happening?
That's decreasing as well. So right now we're at 1,238 overall students, staying flat at about 49.5% choice. 5 years ago, we were at 1,485. And so we're down 250 kids, and that's been an equal distribution of both choice and Manitou Springs students.
Do we have other questions? It's old hat for the school board, but council might find might find some questions in all this. Natalie, I'm sure you're very familiar with all this. Sean, are there any points here you'd like to make or?
No, just that we're concerned about declining enrollment. I mean, enrollment is revenue. That's what we depend on for staffing and for programming and whatnot. And it's something that we take seriously and looking at how we can continue to offer distinctive programming while honoring what Manitou Springs School District 14 is, and just striking that right balance to make sure that we meet the needs of all learners is something that we continually work on. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Sean. Well, maybe that was the segue into the next agenda item. So, which is, we're talking about money, about budgets, and that strikes us all pretty close to the heart here. Before we go on to the next topic, then, do we have any further discussion on the enrollment data here? Apparently not. Let's go on to the next topic then, the Manitou Springs School District budget.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and jump to the third slide. I think that's a good starting point for us. So first is revenue. And just to start, especially because we came off that Manitou Springs City community survey, I just want to remind everybody what the school district is, what the boundaries are. It's not just Manitou Springs School District. We have Crystal Park, we have Cedar Heights, and then Chipeta Park, Green Mountain Falls, Cascade, all of those areas. So we're a little bit broader, just to make sure that we're all on the same page there. But revenue for the school district really comes from two main sources. So we get it from our property taxes, and then we get state equalization. So what it is the School Finance Act is in law, and that determines based off of our student count and cost of living for areas, size of the school district, a bunch of different factors, what our overall budget should be, how much revenue they determine for that year. It's a formula driven allocation that goes across, that's the same for all school districts. They tell us what that budget is, and then it starts with property taxes. So then they go to the local governments based off of what the mills are and the assessed values and all of that in that community. And they determine how much of that total pot the local government, the local community can raise. Anything that the local community cannot raise is then backfilled with state equalization. And that's the total School Finance Act. So School Finance Act is per formula what we are getting based off of all of the factors. And that comes from both property taxes at the state, local property taxes, and then state money. So income and sales tax. So that's our main source of revenue that every single school district in the state gets. The split between local and state differs. There are some districts, the closest being Cripple Creek, that is 100% locally funded. So in order to reach the amount that the state has determined by law that's adequate funding for them, their local property taxes can fulfill that. So the state doesn't have to backfill them at all. There's a lot that can't really raise anything, and the state has to backfill a little bit more. And we're really right in line with the state average. We're pretty normal in that local to state distribution. Then in addition to the state equalization, there are mill levy overrides. So on here, it's MLOs. So this is where we have gone to voters and asked for additional monies for operating expenses. So we've passed, I think, 4 different mill levy overrides over the years. And then the most recent one was in 2018, and it was removing the cap. And so that's saying that we can collect the max allowed by state statute, meaning 25% of that school finance that total funding. So that's where we can get that. And those are all voter approved. Primarily, those have been paying for pay increases for teachers. That's really the majority of it. A few little operating expenses, but it's really to keep us up to market with competitive schools around the area and pay. And then finally, there's this other factor that comes at the state level afterwards. It's called the budget stabilization factor. It used to be called the negative factor. This is the way that they then, if they couldn't balance their budgets, that the state took money away from schools. So it started back in 2008, and hopefully this is the last year of it. It was growing for a number of years, and then they started decreasing and taking it away a little bit. But for Manitou, it's about $20 million over that time that we have not received, that we should have received based on the formula. So quite a bit of money. Any questions on revenue? Okay, I'll get into a little bit on the next slide about what the good things going on are, and then the issues. So this slide right here shows in the yellow and green, those are our enrollment counts. So the yellow is our total membership, which is pretty much head count. So the number of students we have that come in the door every single day. Then the green is what's called funded counts. So as you're a school district with declining enrollment, they don't want to hit you hard with that right away, because you're getting paid, or you're getting your revenue based on students in the door. So as you decline, they don't want to knock you down. So they give you the option of, or they figure out what's best based on an average, your current student count, your average of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, to try and soften that blow. So you can see how that's not as dramatic of a drop as the yellow line. So that's our current funded count. So we're right around 1,300 kids based off our this year's budget, which was a year ago, October. Then the orange line, that's our per pupil funding. So the state, especially since COVID, has increased our per pupil funding pretty dramatically. For so many years, it was right about that $7,500, $7,600 a student mark. And then once COVID hit and inflation went up, they increased it. So we're like $10,700 a student right now, which would be great if our students were staying. But as that student count is dropping, the per pupil funding is going up. We're not capturing that full increase that we should be capturing to be able to pay and keep up with inflation. So it's kind of a little conundrum there. So when Sean said we need to get students back, that's what we really need, is we need students in the door. One question with choice students that I hear often is, how do choice students contribute to this? Every single student, whether they live in Manitou or live somewhere else, if they're in our doors by October 1st, then they're counted they're one of our students, and the funding is the same for them. So we get the same money for them.
Do you include preschool students also?
So this year is the first year of universal preschool. You probably heard a lot about that on the news. So we do get money for preschool, but it's not the same. It comes from a different group, and only for 4-year-olds or 3-year-olds that are on an IEP, so special ed students.
Okay.
3-year-olds that are not in an IEP, we are still collecting tuition for.
Thank you.
And that's changed a lot if you go back to it too. I mean, 4 years ago, we were still only getting 0.58 for every kindergartner. And so now kindergarten is fully funded, and we're getting a lot more without impacting or burdening families for preschool.
Yeah, so Manitou Springs, or District 14, sorry, as I understand it, has higher property taxes that go to the school than many of the other districts in the area. Is that correct?
We have higher mill levies.
Mill levy, okay. So when we get the choice in students, is there any account that are paying less on their property taxes if they went to their own school? Is there any counting in all these calculations with the state input that Manitou gets additional as a result of that?
No.
Thanks.
And I want to clarify, it's mill levies. People aren't necessarily paying less to their school district in taxes. They may be paying less mills, but not necessarily lower taxes. All right, then the next slide gets into our expenditures. A school district's budget is primarily people. So on average, a normal school district in the state, it spends 78 to 80% of their budgets on salaries and benefits. Manitou is currently at 86%. So the big, I mean, that's the majority of our budget is 100% people. I've broken down there. You can see the different categories that the Department of Education has based on how they're split. And we're pretty in line with other districts on those percentages. So the biggest one is general instruction. So those are our classroom teachers. About 50% of our overall salary and benefit budget is teachers in the classroom. Special ed teachers are something different. And then we have our support staff and administration. But those percentages are pretty in line with other districts. But you can see with 86% going to people, there's not a whole lot to do other things with.
Do you have any statistics on how many IEP or 504 kids are choicing into Manitou special ed?
We do have that. I don't have that on hand. It really changes, but I don't even know if, do you want to speak to that, Sean? The number of IEP students and 504s that are choicing in and talk about.
Colleen, actually, do you want to speak to that real quick? You would have the best.
This has changed slightly over the last 2 or 3 years, but approximately 50% of our special ed students are choice students. Approximately 65 to 70% of our gifted and talented students are choice, and about 65 to 70% of our 504 students are choice. And really, you want to be sure that you don't have some disproportionality there, that you kind of align with your 49% choice overall. But special ed and gifted and talented and serving students with special needs there's a lot of rules, as there should be, as those populations have been historically discriminated against. So there's a lot of rules within the choice process. But there's also no school district in the Pikes Peak region started fully staffed in special education this school year. That's a statistic that's across the nation, but here locally for us. So we also want to be very thoughtful around service providers and supporting the people that we do have on staff. But those are our current numbers as of now.
Is that unusual? That seems like a really high percentage, which speaks well to the services being provided, but is that unusual?
I think across the region, because we have so many school districts and because while choice is kind of a unique thing in Colorado, the Pikes Peak region is incredibly unique in Colorado because we have 17 or 18 school districts in what is considered the Pikes Peak region. And there is so much movement and choice within the region. I don't know that those numbers are terribly skewed. I think 504 is a really different, interesting statistic to watch kind of in the nation and in our region. The other piece is that many charter schools are K6 or K8, and then families are really looking for small because they attended a small charter. And so when you look, Manitou Springs High School is really the only small public high school in our region. And so there's a lot of, I think, factors that feed into that, Julie. You bet.
All right, then the next slide really just gets into our reserves. You'll see there we have the last few years have been really high. So a little history there is, I'm not even going to get the years right. A few years ago, we went for a BEST grant. A BEST grant is a grant that is really the only way school districts get any money from marijuana. And so it's capital construction to keep kids warm, safe, and dry. So we went for a BEST grant a few years ago. We were awarded the grant, but that was based off of the passage of the bond that year. The bond did not pass. Therefore, we had to give that money back to the state. So then the next January, we went for another BEST grant. We scaled it back a little bit, and we were awarded that one also. And this was really to do roofs and secure entries at the two elementary schools. So those projects, we got that money. And then we also went out for a certificate of participation to help fund that, because the BEST is a matching grant that is Manitou Springs School District has to pay 72% to get a 28% match. So we got $4 million in COPs to be able to that's a certificates of participation. So essentially it's a loan. People don't like to say that it's a loan, but it really is a loan that we got to pay that matching, because we didn't have an extra $4 million sitting in our general fund. So we got that money. It was sitting there waiting for the projects to be completed. So the projects will all be completed this summer. So that's, our reserves will go back down to normal levels. They were just artificially high holding that money until those projects were complete. As you all probably know, construction and building was a little bit slow over the past few years. And then the last slide is just some capital projects that we're doing or that are on our budget this year. We have a big capital budget this year. Typically our budget's $400,000, and it's really all deferred maintenance. We don't have enough money to tackle any of the big stuff. So it's just deferred maintenance that we do over the years. It's big this year primarily because the BEST is in capital. So anything that's highlighted in yellow there is a BEST project or part of the BEST project. Then we have a bunch of contingencies. And really, we put these contingencies in there for emergencies that have been coming up over the past few years. I think 4 years now in a row, we have had a major plumbing issue. This year we had a water main break right in front of our nutrition services loading area at Manitou Elementary. And so these projects aren't budgeted. They come out of nowhere. So we put a bunch of contingencies in to kind of cover those emergency expenses as they arise. So it's a lot more than normal. We're hoping we don't use it all, but you never know. Yes.
Yeah, Julie, go ahead, please.
Thank you. What is the, what do they call it? Best practices? What is the recommendation for school budgets in terms of how much you should have in reserves? How does that work?
It's generally about 15%. But being a small district with a small budget, it's best practice to be closer to 18 to 20%.
Is that where you are?
Well, we're well above it right now because of the BEST, but when we're back at our normal levels, yes.
Thank you.
Anybody have questions for Susie? Nancy, please.
Yeah, just a quick question. Back to slide 4, the line chart on enrollment and per pupil funding.
Mhm.
Have you extrapolated that out into the future at all? I mean, it's kind of scary looking at this.
I do have projections. We anticipate that really my projections for per pupil funding, they'll go up for one more year and then they're gonna flatten a little bit. Because the budget stabilization factor is one of those big things that we've gotten to go away, and really that just all changes based on inflation. So we're just projecting flat in the future for that. Enrollment, we are working hard to get that back because that's what we can really control and what's scary to us. So we've done a lot of marketing, a lot of work to try to get kids back. Mhm.
Judith?
That was I had a marketing question, so this is a good segue. First of all, I really appreciate this presentation. I've learned a lot and this is just fascinating to me. And I really see places where the city and the school district can work together on mutual goals. So my marketing question is, so how do you, yes, because it's all about getting students in the door, how do you market and attract students to come here? And is that a specific line item in your budget that you budget for marketing purposes?
You want it?
Sean, would you like to?
Sure. Strat. Okay, I'm gonna go. I think we're good. Sorry about that. So strategy wise, this year to capture and try to capture enrollment for next school year, we've done some things with regard to social media, Instagram, or not Instagram, mainly Facebook, that sort of thing, where it's hitting certain areas, geocodes, that sort of thing, doing mailers, also yard signs, things like that. Really trying to honestly target the west side of Colorado Springs, and the west side of D11. That's kind of our target audience. In what we try to do with regard to marketing, and yes, we do budget for it. What we try to do with regard to marketing is what makes us distinctive, what makes us stand out with regard to programming, what kind of feel, what kind of culture can we provide families, prospective families, and then we just try to get them in the door. And we feel like once we get them in the door with a principal on a tour, our success rate is pretty significant with regard to ultimately, hopefully enrolling that family. And so we haven't spent a ton of money on marketing. I feel like we've been smart and targeted in the money that we spent.
Nancy?
Yeah, related to that, do you have any sense why I think it was 69 kids or something that leave Manitou to go to other schools, why they don't come to Manitou? Is there any trends there, or is it just sporadic? Or do you have any idea at all?
I'm not going to say that we've done a deep dive study on that. There are a variety of factors, though, that really have led a lot of districts, frankly, to be down in enrollment. That is a trend that's actually statewide with regard to public schools. A lot of students and families found other ways to be educated, particularly after the pandemic, and found that to be successful for them, so they never really returned. We do have certainly families, and every district does, that shop with regard to what are they looking for in a school experience, what kind of programs, even down to athletics. We know that families begin shopping early with high school in mind. And so we also understand that we really need to be purposeful and strategic in what kind of programs we offer at the secondary level.
And then how about homeschooling? Do we know how many kids in Manitou are homeschooled, and what's their funding streams for that?
I don't know off the top of my head how many homeschool students we have, but we certainly do have families that opt for homeschool options. And anecdotally, I've seen an increase in homeschool applications and ultimately choosing a homeschooling experience over the last few years in multiple districts.
Do you guys have any oversight of the kids that are homeschooled at all? Or is that purely done at the state level? Where's that? I mean, I would think that there's some
really-
accounting for
there's
that
really
at some
not-
place. No,
Not
interesting.
Oversight, no. No.
So they do have to test.
No, they don't have to test. No.
Wow.
No. Yeah.
Pilling, can we have you speak into the microphone, please? Thank you.
It's good. It's a squatting exercise. We have currently 7 students whose parents have acknowledged homeschooling, but they don't have to do that part. And just as good reference for you all, Goal Academy is an online school. It's the largest high school in the state of Colorado. And so at least a third of the students that live within our boundaries and attend another school attend an online school.
Yeah, you'll see that on that other sheet. There's some students that live in Manitou and go to District 49, and that's exactly what that is. They're not all driving like Sean is across town every day.
I'm the other cell that's coming.
You're bringing kids in.
I'm bringing kids. 2.
Julie, do you have a comment?
Oh, I was just curious, and I don't know if you would keep this statistic, but how many students leave to go to Palmer for, and I'm trying to think of what it's called. Yeah. Thank you. The baccalaureate word I remembered. Yeah, how many people, do we know how many students leave to go to that program?
I would say it's a handful. I don't know exactly the
ton.
number, but it's not, I mean, it's not a massive number for
It's
IB.
definitely less than 5.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? Okay, well, I guess if we're all satisfied that our curiosity is appeased, at least for the time being, and we've covered that agenda item, that was really the focus for our work session. I guess if we have any brief comments from school board members, council be happy to hear them. And council then, if we'll give you an opportunity to make comments to the school board, but first school board, please.
I just want to thank you all. I know you're extremely busy with your work to make time for us. Again, the more we lean into each other, even if we don't have specific outcomes and action items this evening, the more we can see where our work can collaborate. We are a small, as we've all said, city and district, and we can only benefit by working together and sharing resources. So hopefully this time together will continue to build partnership.
Thank you. Other school board members? Jill?
Yeah, I would like to reiterate what Tina said. Thank you for having us. And this was really interesting, looking at the city side of many of the same issues. I think for me, some of those things that we have in common are certainly coming to light. Our declining enrollment and young people saying, hey, we can't afford to live here. So yeah, I think we're looking at the same problem from different sides, and I think it's exciting that we can be here and hopefully find some solutions to those problems, or at least move in a direction where we can think about those solutions.
Others? Thank you. School board members? Okay. Oh, Natalie, here you are. Okay, you're the bridge person.
No, I think just recently council had a retreat and we did a SWOT analysis, and the school was mentioned a number of times. And I think that we do see having a school that is active and doing great things in our community as an asset. And I just thank you for making this happen today. And I think it's the beginning of more collaboration.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Judith.
Well, I have to put in a plug for the e-bike voucher program. So we still have vouchers left. I don't know how many, but Manitou Springs voucher program is a little different than the state in that you can buy a new or used bike, and you can, if you're 16 years of age or older and you've been a resident for 1 year. So we would love to see more of those 16 and older kids getting a voucher to get an e-bike.
Great. Thank you. Could you speak into a microphone, please?
I was wondering if those vouchers are just for kids in the Manitou proper, or if it's for kids in D14.
Currently, one of the requirements is that you have to be a Manitou resident for a minimum of 1 year. to qualify.
But a Manitou resident, not a D14 resident.
Correct. Manitou resident.
Thank you. Other council members? Guess not. Well, okay, I would like to thank the school board for coming and visiting with us. I hope this is productive. We've been able to associate names and faces here, so that's, I think, a good first step. So with that, I think I'll go ahead and adjourn this work session. We'll take about a 10-minute break and come back to finish up with the regular session. Thank you very much. Let's get started here in a couple minutes. I think let's just sit where we were. It's the rest of the meeting's shouldn't be too lengthy. So I think it's just convenient for us to not have to move. Already moved. I guess while we're waiting for the city clerk to return and we can get the meeting started, I'd like to thank Sally Fitzgerald for being here tonight. She's making us coffee and tea and providing a service on behalf of the Manatee Springs Women's Club. We appreciate that. Sally, if you'll carry our appreciation back to your comrades, that would be good. Thank you very much. Okay, great. Thank you all. I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. It's a regular meeting in Manatee Springs City Council for March the 5th, 2024. Let's start with our Pledge of Allegiance. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
City Council members Michelle Weatherholt,
Present.
Natalie Johnson,
Here.
Judith Chandler,
Present.
John Shada, Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Fortune,
Present.
and Mayor Graham.
Present. Thank you.
And Julie Wolf is here too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oops. Sorry, Julie. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. All present and accounted for. Good. Oh, sorry about that, Julie. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, council, you've had a chance to look over the agenda, and what we have remaining for this evening is pretty brief. I would seek a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilor Wolf, seconded by Michelle. Let's vote.
Mayor, we're having some technical issues. Can we do
We'll do a voice.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Next item is public comment on non-agenda items. Fairly thin crowd out there. Young man, are you here to speak? Okay. Okay, all right, Ethan. Okay, that's right. I'm sorry, Ethan. Okay, cool. Did we have any communication, emails or anything? Okay, good. Okay, so we'll move along on to the consent calendar. We've got 3 items tonight. Approval of the February 6th, 2024 City Council regular meeting minutes, the February 20th, 2024 City Council regular meeting minutes, and then requesting approval for our contract with the Scanning Company LLC to digitize the planning department's files. Council, we can take any item off that a counselor wants to discuss separately. Or I would accept a motion to accept and approve as presented.
I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Again, we'll vote by voice. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Business, the only business item we have tonight is consider adoption of resolution number 0524, a resolution opposing Colorado House Bill 24-1152 regarding accessory dwelling units. And council, I proposed this, just a little background. There's a copy of the resolution in your packets. Presumably you had a chance to look it over. House Bill 1152, it's been, but I know Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, we have a legislative committee that reviews things every Monday, and we've been discussing this for the last at least 3 weeks. I thought this was worth bringing to your attention. It has been, the PPACG has taken a position of oppose. Florida Municipal League took oppose until just the last few days. They changed to amend. I called them and talked to them today, and if they could have a status of oppose unless amended, that's what they would have preferred, but they decided to go to amend in the hopes that they could negotiate with the bill sponsors. But in general, they're still opposed. Colorado Counties is opposed. El Paso County, Monument, and Fountain have also lodged oppositions, although none of them have done a resolution. With that, I think some of you probably have followed this a little bit. I can explain things, but I'd be happy to open it up to discussion. Julie.
I'm in favor of a resolution opposing the bill.
Okay, thank you. Natalie?
I'm in favor of the resolution, but I was wondering if we could include some language suggesting that we understand why the governor is doing this. So there isn't any sort of a mention basically indicating that there is a housing issue in the state and that he's just resolving it incorrectly. And so for me, something like, I don't know, like at the end, like whereas Manitou Springs sits in the foothills, to put something in there along the lines of whereas we understand the governor's need to increase housing throughout the state, Manitou Springs sits in the foothills abutting, something to the effect of acknowledging the clear desperation that this bill indicates would be something that I would support.
Okay, thank you. Well, since we're kind of going around the table, Nancy?
Yeah, I'd ask the Allison Gerbig from the chair of the Housing Advisory Board, if they might want to weigh in on this. And Allison sent me something that I'd like to read. She says, I looked up the HB 1152 and with the limited time to fully review it, leaning in agreement with council's opposition based on Colorado Municipality Leagues highlighting the bill would undermine local efforts. I don't believe the opposition takes ADUs off the table for Manitou Springs. It just wouldn't make mandatory requirements outside of local need and design. What I do appreciate about the HB 1152 is that the available funding to support residents with development, and curious if this can be accessed through Prop 123. Since we are unable to review and provide input from HAB, this is solely my opinion. Although the thoughtful planning and development of accessory dwelling units in Manitou has been part of HAB's strategy plan as one solution for increasing affordable housing, I ask City Council to clearly communicate that what the opposition of the resolution opposing HB 1152 means for the city future ADU conversations, ensuring local input and oversight. Thank you for your time and support.
Okay, thank you. Do you have other comments, Nancy?
I would say at this point in time, as I've read about it, that I oppose the imposition of state directing us. As I think most of you know, I still support Manitou coming up with an ADU ordinance. I do think ADUs are appropriate for Manitou, and that with the HAB's input, we can come up with a good implementation. I've read quite a few of the other cities' implementations, And I think that we could use a lot of the creative solutions that they've come up with for Manitou. So I was not comfortable with the way the resolution was written, in that I would have just gone with the sample resolution that CML had provided, simply saying that we are opposed to this because of we don't want it imposed upon us. We want to come up with our own solution or something to that effect.
Okay, thank you. John?
Well, I went through their kind of whereas clauses, which are 13, 14, and 15, and wasted an amazing amount of paper printing off the studies they referenced in this House bill. They're dated. Not one of them mentioned an ADU. Okay. In any way. Okay. You know, using any contrivance of what you would consider an ADU would be. So I was a little disappointed in their whereas in terms of, and their kind of conclusions in these sections that are acting like that this would solve something. So after exhausting myself on that, I found a very interesting contemporary paper from March of last year from the Urban Institute, who had studied for 20 years specifically ADUs. And I would like to kind of, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, kind of read kind of their conclusion into the record. It says,
That'd be okay, John, if it's not too lengthy. is
no,
it?
it's just a few sentences
Okay,
here.
thank you,
It
please.
says, we find that reforms that loosen restrictions, mainly for like ADUs, okay, are associated with a statistical significant 0.8% increase in housing supply within 3 to 9 years of reform passage. I just want to just pause there for a second. What they studied was if you tighten regulations and restricted, as an example, ADUs, or whether you loosened it up. Okay. So, so hang on. Within 3 to 9 years of reform passage, accounting for new and existing stock, this increase occurs predominantly for units at the higher end of the rent price distribution. We find no statistical significance evidence that additional lower cost units become available or moderate in cost in the years following the reforms. So I think and this study, I think, was very coherent in terms of what they did, in terms of they examined a broad range of statistics in cities and whatnot. And so I think this ADU House bill that's trying to address affordability and accessibility, according to this study, doesn't exist. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it basically the ADUs that are constructed, in a sense, cater to higher income groups of people. Yeah, I can.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, John. That was good research. I guess then you would be in support of the resolution?
Yes, absolutely. I would.
Okay, I just.
Yes, yeah, I do not think this is going to solve the problem.
Okay, great. Thank you. Judith?
Yeah, I've done a thorough review of the House bill. I did not get a chance to review the CML resolution. So I support this resolution as written.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
I support the resolution and I second what Natalie said.
Okay, thank you. Great. Well, and as you may guess, I also support the resolution. A couple of things, and Natalie, I think you bring up a good point, and this actually was mentioned last year because there was the Senate Bill 213, which was sort of like the on steroids version of this, and it looks like this bill is kind of it's a subsection of what that was last year. So, the state, I think, they're trying to address housing. I mean, and that's a genuine problem. It's not a simple problem. I certainly resent them telling us how to do things for Manitou. Something that might be of interest to you, and I just got something from CML a little after 4 o'clock this afternoon. It's another bill. It addresses housing. It's Senate Bill 174. It talks about partnerships for affordable housing initiatives. And I just glanced at it really. I think it does, part of it, it does talk about funding for housing needs through DOLA, the Department of Local Affairs. DOLA, well, let me read the bullets here real quick. DOLA creates methodologies and conducts a statewide assessment of housing needs, provides technical assistance, offers planning grants, and maintains resources on housing practices, assists with regional cooperation, and creates reports to inform master plans. The local governments would be, and these are for governments of 1,000 people or more, so we would be part of that. Conduct housing needs assessment. We'd have to do that by January 1st of next year, and then update it every 6 years. Regions can conduct housing needs assessments as well. Local governments develop housing action plans outlining strategies. This is by January 1st, 2028. So there's more than 3 years there. Counties and municipalities with master plans update them to housing action plans and new water and strategic growth elements. That's in 2026. Strategic growth elements consider housing integration, the buildable sites, public infrastructure, and service needs. And there would be a grant prioritization process. So that's another bill. And this one actually is has support from Clarendon Municipal League. So I don't know if that, I think maybe that sort of addresses your concern, although it doesn't put the wording in the.
I think
the
it's just
resolution.
that, you know, when I would give an evaluation of a teacher and I wanted it to be taken seriously, I made sure that I recognized their part in their professionalism to some degree and would address the parts that are not okay. So I think that just acknowledging that there's a problem he's trying to address seems not necessary, but I think it would be more impactful if we're like, we understand you have a problem that you're trying to address. However, it is not a fit for our community, as opposed to just all out, you know, kind of a response. That's all. But I don't know if he'll read it anyway, so I don't know that it really matters. But personally, I would soften it a bit, but make sure that it's clear. And that's all. So
Okay,
it's just a matter of how you operate in the world. And I just would do it a little differently.
Okay. All righty. Michelle, I think you were of a similar mind. Yeah, I guess personally, I wouldn't have a problem with adding something to that effect. I don't know if that's necessary, but if that would make the two of you feel a little better, if there's no objection from those who are in favor, and then so that leaves us with Nancy. Nancy, which?
No, I support the fact that the state should not be telling us how to do ADUs. Or directing us to have to do ADUs at this point in time. I agree with Natalie. I will tell you, I don't know who was there at CML last summer when the governor came and spoke to the audience, and there was palpable tension between the CML audience and the governor based on what happened last year. And it was, I was embarrassed by it, that it was so intense. And who else? Was anyone else? I know Denise was there. Natalie, were you there as well? And I just thought it was very unfortunate that that there was this knocking of horns between the governor and CML. And I think it's unnecessary. So yes, I absolutely support what Natalie is saying. And I would also ask, I know that the testimony was supposed to be on February 27th. So are we $1 late and a day short on this, or a day late on this?
Not
Is it
really.
still-
No, there was testimony. It is moving. It's, I
Okay.
believe, still in the House. So actually the timing is, timing
It's
is
still okay.
crucial.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I also mentioned that last Wednesday, 6 days ago, CML had something of an emergency town hall meeting. It was remote. It was, over Teams. And oh gosh, I think there were probably 160, 180 people around, from across the state who attended, and it was largely focused on opposing 1152. So it was, I mean, certainly I had the sense that it was considered pretty urgent
Yeah.
by CML, hence that's why I went
I
ahead and
think the
did this.
partnership between CML, the municipalities and the state are important, and that has been fractured somewhat with these constant, like I said, locking of horns between the two is not productive.
Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Judith?
So with regards to, inserting something instead of the last whereas statement, I think it might be more comfortable to put it in the second to the last whereas statement, to make that just a stronger whereas statement, because it does say Manistee Springs recognizes that affordable housing issues present an enormous challenge. So I don't know, just a thought that, we could craft something into that whereas statement that we acknowledge, what the state is attempting to do. However, and we recognize, so I just a thought.
Oh, right. I think that's a constructive thought. And I was just trying to jot something down here to run past you and see if it would, resonate with council. See what I did, and forgive me for kind of doing this on the run here. Is it whereas we realized that affordable housing is an enormous challenge for Colorado. We encourage our state legislatures to seek realistic solutions that honor local control and local needs. Is that, are you okay?
Appreciate it. Yep.
Okay, both councils, what I would propose, then I could take that and put that in where we have the last whereas. I could add as an additional whereas. I mean, pride of authorship is, I think this is, I appreciate you entertaining this, and I want something that's representative of what how this council feels. Okay, I guess my proposal then would be to take what I just read and make that an additional whereas, the last one just ahead of the now, therefore. But if anybody has heartburn with that, the current last word sits in the foothills, I can take that out. I don't think that's going to be a deal breaker. What's council's pleasure?
I don't think we need the last whereas, but I mean, all they care if we're against it, really.
Say again, please.
The last whereas, I don't think we really need that last whereas.
Okay,
I think fewer words in this whole resolution are better, actually.
okay.
I agree.
You okay with that? Well, let me put it this way. Unless there's opposition, if anybody feels differently, what I would do is take what I just said and make that the last whereas and delete the current last whereas, but starts with Manistee Springs sits in the foothills. Is that agreeable?
Mayor, I will move to approve resolution number 0524 with the elimination of the last whereas and substituting that with the approved whereas statement that you have read.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? Let's vote by voice. All in favor, say aye. Okay, any opposed? Guess not. Great. Okay, thank you very much. Great. Okay, so that takes us to council correspondence. There are two things I wanted to ask you about. I don't need an answer right away. It's calendar kinds of issues. During the Saturday work session, we talked about doing an employee appreciation lunch. Denise was able to look at the city calendar. She has suggested April the 12th. That's a Friday. We'd be in Mansions Park. Attendance is not obligatory, but I wanted to run that by you and see if that would be a good date for those of you who want to participate. It's a Friday, so it'd be a Friday out, it'd be probably take us 10:30, 11 o'clock, probably 11 to 1, something like that. There'd be a little lunchtime. Yeah, barbecue. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I mean, again, attendance, I know people have other obligations and stuff. But it looked like it worked well with the city employees schedule. So let me put that out. We don't need to make a decision tonight on that. The other thing is, believe it or not, we're trying to figure out the availability of this room and so forth. So for our annual budget retreat that we do in the fall, we'd be looking at October the 12th. So I'd ask you to check your calendars. If you've got something, that if there's a conflict, we've got some latitude to do it a little bit, a different day, but that's a Saturday. That's the right time of the year. And that gives staff a little time, little additional time to put things together. So I'll ask you to just think that over, and then either let me know, or I'll try to remember to bring it up again next week.
And
Really?
you're tracking that that's Indigenous Peoples' Day weekend?
Right, I know, yeah. So that would be, one of the things that drives this is we have a due date with the state of October the 15th. We try to get it all put together, and it's kind of stresses staff. And I know I looked at that. It's not only Indigenous Peoples' Day, it's also antelope season. Not that that's a big deal, but so check your calendars if you would, please. Nancy?
Can I ask a question on the employee picnic?
Sure.
What is the intent? Who is doing that? If I'm confused, is it council is hosting it? Is staff doing it for themselves? If council is hosting it, who is doing all the work to coordinate it? Who is paying for it? There's just a number of unanswered questions for me for that particular event.
Okay, so let me, I guess I owe you a little more information. My thought was that this is something maybe council would like to do for the city employees, which would mean we would be doing the work. We might need to get some help. I realize not everybody on council might be able to attend. The city would pay for the food. We would, if the weather's good, we'd probably do it out in Mansions Park. If it rains, we'd be in here. That's as far as I've taken it. So, but that's the general sentiment. If you've ever had to do a church picnic or something like that, it'd be pretty comparable to that. Does that help any, Nancy?
No, that does help. The devil's in the details, and I'm very supportive of, and I will work as hard as I can. That is not a great day for me. I probably could come for the morning. But yeah, it's helpful, and it's going to require, and I think if council is doing the work for it, we need to really start thinking about it right away.
Okay, and one of my backup thoughts was I could probably get a few of the Kiwanis guys to come help. They have quite a bit of experience in flipping hamburgers and cooking hot dogs. So that's part of my backup plan. But I mean, if the dates, if council has other dates you'd like to suggest, maybe that'd be a good way to do it too.
We might want to also think about a small committee from the council to start planning it. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but to me, it's not just do it. Maybe Kiwanis can just do it, but then it's not really the council doing it. So.
Okay. Take that under advisement. Okay. It's still council correspondence. Anybody got anything? Let's do Natalie and then Julie.
I just had a question. The MAPS board was just wondering, we'd had the complete streets presentation and talked about the city potentially joining NACTO. And they were just following up on that to see what next steps were in terms of us potentially joining that organization and that piece. So
we joined it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's joined, and we've said that we do complete streets in 2025 is when we take it to MAPS, and they would start working on it in 2025.
Perfect.
2024, their workload they've got a already workload.
Totally understood. Great. And then I just had one more question too, regarding Plan Manitou. Some of the advisory boards have been asking if the Plan Manitou folks are going to come to the advisory boards for input, or if it's literally just someone from the advisory board would join the committee. The Plan Manitou, they're just asking about how to participate.
That hasn't been
answer
determined
that.
yet. We haven't really discussed this. I know we're accepting applicants through Sunday night. Sorry, Denise, you had more?
No, I was going to say, I would have to talk to the consultants of what their work plan is and let you know. I don't know the answer to that.
And of course, the sentiment was expressed by multiple counselors that we wanted some fresh blood. That seemed to be a good thought there too. So, Okay, Julie, please.
Thank you. I wanted to see if we could, as soon as possible, have a work session to follow up on the Saturday retreat that we had. Specifically, I wanted us to go through the list that Denise emailed us of all of our priorities. And apparently the list is too long because, you know, the email she sent us said that she at most hopes to get 95% of it started, and she'll decide which ones to start. I would like to decide which ones to start. I would like us to have input and to make the decision on priority. And so I'd like that to be discussed at the work session because it was 11:15 when we were done doing that project, SWAT or whatever it's called. And then it was very, very rushed at the end when, you know, oh, we're going to have a work session on this and this, and then Denise is going to prioritize. I think we should prioritize, and I'd like to have an agenda item for that in an upcoming work session.
Mayor, it's my understanding that we put that on a tentative work session for August this morning, August 13th,
Well,
12th or 13th.
Yeah, and I think the sentiment there is to sort of review and get a progress report and update, and certainly however it plays out, I think it's a good thing to look at it, certainly no later in August. Yeah, council, okay, I hear what you're saying, Julian. There's on some of those things, we've got different timelines, and those could certainly be discussed as to what, you know, what we can get done when. I think that'd be okay. Does the rest of council want to kind of discuss that so we have a better idea? I think it would be appropriate for Denise to give us some background on some of those things. Not now, Denise, but would it be okay if she make her recommendations as to what should be done in what order?
Yeah, I mean, if Denise comes to us and says something more specific than what we have so far, rather than saying she'll just decide, if we say, we really like to see these particular items prioritized, and then if Denise comes back and says, ooh, I don't think you can put that one on priority because that's fine, then that's helpful input. But I think it's our responsibility to make these decisions rather than dumping it on the city administrator. And then at the end of the year, maybe being not happy with which she thinks, which she chose is, you know, we should choose that for her. So she has direction.
Okay. That seems reasonable to me. Denise, I guess I'd invite you to make a comment on that.
No, that would be great. What it says is start and or complete a minimum of 90% of the project list. So that's start or complete and or complete. And it really will depend on funding. So if I can't get a loan at a certain time or those things, but we can definitely go through that and talk about each one of them and what that looks like. But a lot of it will depend on when the funding comes in, what it looks like and those things. But we can go through each one of them.
You know, and as you say that, both you, Julie and Denise, it seems to me like that would be helpful for council to have a better understanding of what's at play. So, I mean, kind of helps us set our expectations and helps us set expectations for, well, Denise and the rest of staff. So I'd be in favor of doing that. Is that rest council agreeable? So we'll try to get that onto a work session here in the near future. Does that sound agreeable?
Sure. Now, Judith just mentioned August 13th. Are you going to be able to put it in sooner than that? Is that
Well,
what you're saying?
yeah, August 13th is just sort of a
placeholder.
It's sort of analogous to our mid-year budget review, I think, is one way to look at it as we look at the.
Oops, sorry, ma'am. It's also to do this, look at the SWOT analysis that you did and identify what you want to focus on in 2025 for the budget. So it had a little bit of everything in that one was what I took from it, but I may have misunderstood what that was.
No, actually, now that you mentioned that, I think, yeah, we did talk about getting the SWOT analysis back. John, can you get us, if you get a copy, that'd be great. Yeah, we can all take a look at it. And I think that'd be a good basis for us. Yeah, I was actually quite pleased that we had a lot of common ground there, I thought. So I think this would be good going forward. Great. Okay. Anybody else? Let's see, Michelle and then Nancy.
We have some upset residents with parents dropping off their students on Pawnee in front of the houses. So, some substitute teachers that are, working at the school, they are hearing grumblings between, parents and residents over when the, parents are dropping off their students because they're parking in front of the houses on Pawnee.
Oh, it's a parking problem, not that the students are standing on the sidewalk.
Correct. Hmm.
So they're violating the new parking rules.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I guess, well, yeah, it was my understanding, maybe I'm delusional, but and Denise, you'll have to refresh my memory, but I was thinking there were some people at the school who were trying to work on that drop-off problem. So that is the case?
Yeah, we have a group that's working on it. Sean has not heard anything about this and the principal hasn't reached out to us. So we aren't quite sure what's going on. We haven't had anything from parking, nor has the police heard anything. So we're not quite sure what's happening here. But yeah, we do have a group that's working with the whole transportation and parking at Pawnee.
Okay. Well, Michelle, maybe they can get some traction on this. Okay.
Or have them reach out to their principal. Would be wonderful if they would let their principal know what's happening and then they'll bring that to the group and start finding solutions.
Okay.
think-
Julie, I think Nancy was next.
Oh,
but
okay. I'm
we'll come
sorry.
back.
I was just gonna finish up on
Well,
that.
the same,
topic.
well, okay, we're on the same topic. Okay, Julie, go ahead. We'll take that topic.
I was just gonna suggest that you give those residents, if you happen to talk to them again, the phone number to call when someone's illegally parked in front of your house on a residential parking place. I mean, complaining to city council is fine, but I'd call the parking people.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Nancy, I think you were next.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to thank, I guess Chief Otto for putting the speed trailer up on Crystal Park. And I want to make it clear, I know that there was some, perception that there's only one person or two people complaining about speed, and it is not. When I'm walking up there, I get people stopping me. So it's a larger concern on Crystal Park. Secondly, I would like to put in advocate for that Plan Manitou. They do go to all the boards and commissions. I think it's very important that they, as boards and commissions, that they be queried about the Plan Manitou as well, even if they're serving on some of the planning groups or focus groups. Lastly, I went to URA meeting this morning and Matt, the city arborist, was there based on council's request. He presented a preliminary plan asking for $4,500 to $5,000 to plant trees in the URA area. They approved his funding pending a specific plan, i.e. where the trees are going to go, specifically what types of trees would go in and that sort of thing, as well as to put a priority on street trees, because that was their original intent for the funding, was that they be street trees, not necessarily on the creek walk. And his plan was primarily put it on the creek walk area along the creek. Lastly, they brought up that they would really like to have input into the Dillon design. They were disappointed that there's no community engagement opportunities at this point in time. So, and they thought that that was not in line with what we typically do in Manitou. So they would like to definitely be engaged in some form or fashion into how that design is finalized or developed. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, let's go to the city administrator's report.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. I sent out an email about the training that PPACG is going to be doing for boards on, I believe it's March 28th from 6 to 7:30. And if you plan to attend, please let me know so that I can make reservations and we can pay for it for you. It's $10. And Dr. Pam Shockley will be presenting on building trust. So if you've ever heard her, she's an excellent presenter. She does a great job. So that's at PPACG on March 28th. The other thing I sent out today was also the CML conference. And if you would like to attend that, please let Lisa know as soon as possible so we can get you booked and get the hotel booked before it sells out. And that is, the dates of that are June 16th. No, it's June. It goes all to the way to Friday. So Wednesday through Friday on June. So I think it's the 18th, maybe through to the 21st. So if you would like to go to that, please let me know as quickly as possible too, or let Lisa know. And then I believe all of you received the information about the Manitou Springs Pollinator Palooza. So we're starting this. This is really exciting for our pollinators. It's whoever puts the most in for the month will win some type of prize. We've had our businesses donate prizes. It's all been promoted. Encourage you to please download the app and take pictures so that we can get this for our pollinator district. Other than that, that's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'd look for a motion to adjourn then.
I move we adjourn.
In a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you all.